The next term is probably the hardest one. It's probably the one that I couldn't get anybody that I polled to just know what it was right off the top of their head. It's a tough one. It's not a word we use that often. And that word is propitiation, okay? Propitiation is simply a satisfactory payment of a debt, okay? Now, this means that it's not paying things in installments, it's not a loan, it means you present absolute payment of a debt. Every last drop, every last penny, every last dime is paid. It is paid in full. You want to think of Jesus' last words here when he's on the cross. He says the Greek word tetelestai, okay? And what that word means is it is finished, right? But it's interestingly, in ancient Greek records, they found like mortgages and loans, like paperwork and stuff. Not paperwork, but different scrolls and different things that mortgages, loans were on. And this word, tetelestai, was on it. And what it meant was paid in full, right? And this is the picture that Jesus paid on the cross everything required for sin in full. Now, here's the thing. We've discussed that God gives us his righteousness as a gift, right? Like we said that, yeah? Right? But here's the question, is that gift free? Is a gift of salvation, is it free? Well, the answer is yes and no. The gift is free to anyone who accepts it, right? The gifts you give to the kids at Christmas, they're free. Somebody paid for them, okay? They didn't just come out of nowhere. There is no Santa Claus, newsflash, right? They're not made by elves. Somebody paid for them, right? Salvation is absolutely free to anyone that wants to accept that gift. But brothers, it came at a huge price. The price of death, suffering, and crucifixion of Jesus on the cross. That's what paid for your gift. It's free to you, but it cost a great price for him. Right? I love that phrase that Paul uses. He says, you were bought and paid for at a price. You are not your own, okay? See, so God makes you righteous. He makes you righteous. He declares you righteous, but it's not done by some presto changeo. It's not done by a magic trick, Sin costs a price. The wages of sin, the debt that you accrue by sinning, and this is all of us, has to be paid. Payment has to be made. Listen to this. 1 John 1, verse 5 says this. John says, now this is a message we've heard from him and declare to you, God is light. Okay? And there is absolutely no darkness in him. Okay? A perfect God, a completely perfect God, cannot associate with an imperfect, sinful creation. God has to judge sin, okay? So he has to make you righteous. How? How does he do that? How does he practically do that? Does he just say, you know what, I'm God and I can do whatever I want? No, there's a price that has to be paid. That's where propitiation comes in. The satisfactory payment for your debt, which is death, separation from God, hell, that payment must be made, either by you or by someone. God is righteous and he must judge sin. Here's the thing. Someone made that payment for us, right? Let's go back again to the original verses that we read in Romans 3 again. Okay, now I want you to look now at verse 25. Now remember, our word of the day here is propitiation. Listen to what he says. He says, God presented him, that's Jesus, as a propitiation. Now remember, that satisfactory payment for sin. God presented Jesus as the payment required for sin. In Colossians, Paul says that Jesus, he took that certificate of debt that we accrued by our sin and the certificate of payment, and he nailed them to the cross. Absolved. It is finished. God presented Jesus as propitiation, satisfactory payment, through faith in his blood. Remember, it's faith. It's faith that what Jesus did was enough to pay for your sin. You got to believe that. Jesus said, here's my body. Here's the payment for your sin. Do you believe it's enough? Do you believe that'll cover your sin forever? Through faith in his blood, listen, to demonstrate his righteousness, because in his restraint he passed over the sins previously committed. Remember, God didn't immediately judge your sin. Do you notice that? Think about how many times you've sinned in your life, or today, you know. God didn't judge us the first time we sinned. He would have been completely within his rights to do so, to send us off. One time's enough. You only get one time. But the Bible says here, he says, in his restraint, he passed over those sins previously committed. That Jesus was patient. God was patient. He showed immense restraint, allowing each of us to come to the knowledge of his Son and accept the gift of salvation. Think about that. He looked away. He was patient. He didn't judge you and I immediately. As David said in Psalm 103, he didn't judge us according to what we deserved. He didn't give us what we deserved. He was rich in love and mercy, right? We can again go to Isaiah to see this beautiful picture painted for us. I love it. Like I said, the Old Testament is like an artist. That's what the Old Testament does for me, is it paints this picture. And I don't think there's anywhere that it does it better than in the Song of the Suffering Servant in Isaiah 53. Do you want to know what this payment looked like? Look at Isaiah 53. We're going to read verse 5 and 6 here. Isaiah 53 verse 5 says, but he. Now remember, this is 700 years before Jesus. Okay? This doesn't say Jesus by name, it's the suffering servant, okay? But if you read the whole thing, you'd be nuts not to know that it's talking about Jesus. He says, but he, Jesus, was pierced because of our transgressions. He was crushed because of our iniquities. The punishment of our peace was on him, and we are healed by his wounds. You see this exchange? You see this payment? This is what we deserve, but he got crushed. This is what our iniquities did, but this is what happened to him. The punishment of our peace was on him. You see this like it's a trade. Like we give him all of our yucky stuff, and he takes it. And as a result, we get his righteousness. It's like, how? How in the world, you know? It's this exchange, you know, this is exactly what Jesus was referring to when he said there on the cross. He said, it's paid in full. He said, I've taken everything that you had to pay. I've done it all. Now all you got to do is take it. All you have to do is accept it. I've given my body, I've given my life in exchange for yours. A propitiation, a life for a life, a death for a life. And all you have to do is accept it. That's why it's so hard. It's so hard to hear people that reject the message. Listen guys, this is the only religion in the world that God gave his life so that you could have life. Everything else is you trying to chase a carrot somewhere, trying to appease some God that's angry. Not this one. This one is God saying, I love you, and if I don't do this, you're lost. It's a true father, right? I love it.